Hello everyone. Here today I'm your trainer for this tutorial. So please welcome to the world of manuals. As you embark on this journey, you will discover the power of concise and informative documentation. Manuals are valuable resources that provide instructions, guidelines, and information on various subjects. Whether you are interested in understanding how to operate a smartphone, navigate workplace policies, optimize manufacturing processes, use home appliances effectively, or deliver exceptional customer service. Manuals have got you covered. By studying different examples and exploring their content, you will gain valuable insights into how manuals are structured and how they help users perform tasks effectively and safely. So dive in and unlock the wealth of knowledge waiting for you in the realm of manuals and how to develop. So children, basically, a manual is typically a written document or book that contains instructions, guidelines, or information about a particular subject. It serves as a reference guide for users, providing step-by-step instructions, troubleshooting tips, safety precautions, and other relevant details to aid in understanding and using a product, process, or system effectively. Manuals are designed to provide clear and concise information to assist users in performing tasks or operating equipment correctly. So I will brief you here with some examples about 5 types of the manuals. So by these examples, you will understand what these documents are and how they look like. For example, user manuals for a smartphone. It is a manual for a smartphone which provides instructions on how to set up and use the devices. It covers topics such as device layout, initial setup, navigating the user interface, using application, adjusting settings, troubleshooting common issues, and maximizing the phone's features. So in this manual, you will have a great and detail about how to operate your smartphone. Next one is employee handbook. It is also another one example of manual. An employee handbook is a manual that outlines an organization's policies, procedures, and expectations for employees. It covers topics such as code of conduct, employee benefits, leave policies, disciplinary procedures, safety guidelines, and other relevant information to guide employees in their work and behavior. Another example of a manual is operations manual for a manufacturing plant. For example, if you are working in a manufacturing plant and your management assigns you a task to prepare a manual for that process plant, then how this type of manual look like? An operation manual for a manufacturing plant provides detailed procedures and guidelines for operating the facility and its equipment safely and efficiently. It covers topics such as equipment operations, maintenance protocols, quality control processes, safety procedures, emergency responses, and workflow management. The next example for the manual is instruction manual for a home appliance. An instruction manual for a home appliance such as a dishwasher or washing machine provides step-by-step instructions on how to install, operate, and maintain the appliance. It includes information on setting up the appliance, loading and operating it correctly, troubleshooting common issues, and performing routine maintenance tasks. Coming on to the next example of the manual, that is training manual for customer service representatives. A training manual for customer service representatives provides guidance and instructions on how to interact with customers, handle inquiries, resolve complaints, and provide excellent customer service. It includes information on communication skills, product knowledge, conflict resolutions, and company policies to ensure consistent and highly quality customer service interactions. So gentlemen, these are just a few examples of the different types of the manuals that exist in various fields. Manuals are designed to provide clear instruction, guidelines, and information to assist users or employees in performing tasks, understanding concepts, or complying with specific requirements. So here comes the next part, which we are going to discuss an example with complete details that how a manual is being prepared or developed, for example, in case of a chemical filling manufacturing plant. So what format you will have to follow to prepare this type of manual, here I am going to explain you in detail. So first of all, gentlemen, you will write the title. For example, here the title is written as Operations Manual for Chemical Filling Manufacturing Plant. Then comes the table of contents. In table of contents, you will mention part 1 is the introduction, and it has 3 subparts. 1.1, the purpose of the manual, the scope of the manual, 1.3, and the plant overview. So in introduction, you will basically give basic details about your plant and what boundaries or scope you want to include in your manual, and actually what is the purpose of your manual. In part 2, you will address health and safety issues and provide a brief detail of your manufacturing plant in this section, in this part 2. So it has 2.1 safety policies and procedure. In this part, you will mention already existing safety policies and procedure in your organization. In 2.2, hazard identification and risk assessment, you will explain what hazard identification and risk assessment procedure your organization already practicing. 2.3, personal protective equipment guidelines. And if there is some guidelines regarding the personal protective equipment in your company, then you will briefly explain these types of details here in 2.3 section. Then in 2.4, emergency preparedness and response. So your organization may be having an emergency preparedness and response plans, and you must detail, you must give details of your plan here in these sections. Then 2.5, if your company having some incident reporting and investigation procedure, then you will have to mention that procedure here in this subsection 2.5. Coming on to the part 3, that is the plant operations. So here you will briefly explain the organizational structure of your plant. In 3.1, you will explain the process flow chart, that how your process works in your organization. In 3.2, your equipment and machinery operation and maintenance. 3.3, product quality control and assurance. 3.4, material handling and storage. 3.5, waste management procedures. These informations or details you will have to mention in these sections regarding your existing plant. Then comes the part 4, which is standard operating procedures. So already which some SOPs already existing in your plant, then you should give details here in this section 4. 4.1, chemical filling process. Maybe you would be having already a filling process with you, so you should give brief details here in this subsection 4.1. Then handling and use of the chemicals, that how the chemicals which your organization being using, that how you handle and use those chemicals for the process. Then 4.3, equipment cleaning and sanitizations, which is very important because you know chemicals are of different natures, and some chemicals also have some hazardous capabilities. So cleaning and sanitization process is very important. So you will have to mention all these details in 4.3 section. Then 4.4, equipment calibration and maintenance, because these equipment which you use for the calibration and maintenance of your plant, you must give the details of that equipment here in this section 4.4. Then 4.5, batch record and documentations. Different chemicals would be having different batch numbers and documentation. So in this section, you will have to keep all that records updated as per this requirement. Coming next, the part 5, which is regarding the quality assurance. In this part, which has 4 subsections. 5.1, you will have to provide quality control procedures here in this subsection, and then 5.2, sampling and testing protocols, which are already being used in your plant. Then 5.3, the product release and rejection criteria. This is regarding the final product of your plant. For example, if you are developing some product and you sell it to your customers, and when you release them, whether it is accepted by your customer or not. So you will have to give details of the release details, and if it is rejected, then you will have to mention the criteria for that as well, that for which criteria which it could not fulfill and the product was rejected. In 5.4, you will have to provide the documentation and record keeping details regarding your all chemicals used in your plant. Then in part 6, you will have to provide the maintenance and repair details. It has subsection 4 subsection 6.1, preventive maintenance schedules with being practiced in your plant. Then 6.2, routine inspection and checks. If you are doing any routine inspection and checks, you will have to briefly explain those inspection and checks here in this subsection 6.2. Then 6.3 is equipment troubleshooting. Yes, obviously, while during working, your equipment may be having some troubles. So do you have some troubleshooting mechanism or procedure with you? So we will have to briefly explain here in this section 6.3. Maintenance and log documentation, which is again a very important and mandatory document, that is mandatory maintenance log. Then comes the part 7, which is regarding the training and personnel, which is very much important because chemicals are being used in your plant. So training of your employees is very much important. In this section, in 7.1, you will provide training program for employees. If you have any training program which is existing in your plant, you will give the details here in this subsection. 7.2, roles and responsibilities regarding the training. Then 7.3, competency assessments. You will have to give the details of the competency assessment criteria which you have established for your plant. Then 7.4, training records and documentation. you will have to provide the mechanism and the procedures that how you maintain the training record and documentation of your employees to which you impart the necessary trainings. In part number 8, you will provide the environmental management procedures, which is very much important because your plant is using chemicals, and the chemicals when are developed into some product, they are mixed, and with the process they create environmental hazards. So it is very much important to keep the aspects of environmental management intact. And in this 8.1 subsection, you will provide environmental policies and procedures existing in your plant. And then 8.2, pollution prevention and control. 8.3, regulatory compliance regarding the environmental management. 8.4, environmental monitoring and reporting mechanism, which your plant is being used. You will have to provide the details of that as well. In regulatory compliance, basically that means that if you are using different chemicals and they have some standards, local standards, that how much of product or byproduct can be released into the air, you must know that standards and your country regulations, whatever those existing in your country, you must know that, and you must have some procedure to control that if the standard is not met. So these details should be provided here in this part 8. Coming on to the part 9, which is references materials. In this part 9, you can provide the reference materials which you have to be referenced for your concerning products related to your chemicals. In 9.1, you will provide the relevant industry standards and regulation which affect or impact your plant or organization. 9.2, MSD's material safety data sheets. You should provide details of all the MSDS which are being used by your plant. In 9.3, you must provide equipment manuals and technical documentation. Equipment manuals means that if some machines are being used to process some chemicals, then every machine should have its own manuals, that how it is how it operates. So every machine should have its own unique manuals and technical documentation regarding, for example, if your machine has to be inspected for a specific period of time, then their inspection report is a technical documentation or any other detail which is mentioned into that document. So you should have that document with you of all the machines and equipments being used in your plant. In 9.4, you must provide external contacts and resources as well regarding the emergency situations or details of any chemicals which you want to know and their hazards. Sometimes you need to know suddenly that what type of the hazard these types of chemicals pose. So you must have contacts and communication lines with the concerned experts. So they should provide you required information at the time of need. In part 10, we talk about the appendices. This is basically the last part. Here you have to provide some diagrams and graphs of your plant. For example, in 10.1, you will provide the plant layout diagrams. 10.2, you can provide equipment specifications, emergency contacts, and glossary of the terms. For example, when you will develop your complete manuals for this plant, then what terminologies you are using for that, you will have to define that as well clearly for the better understanding. So in this way, you will be able to develop a good and effective manual for your chemical filling plant. So it is to remember that the operation manual for a chemical filling manufacturing plant should be tailored to the specific requirements and processes of the plant. It should conform to the relevant industry standards and regulations and be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure accuracy and compliance. What does this mean? This means that what I have provided you, the guidelines that are generic, and you can use that details or that information to develop your own organization's manual on the basis of these guidelines, but it should be exactly relevant to your context of the organization. So you should tailor it according to your requirements, and you should also review it regularly so that if some new chemicals added into your plant or new machinery added or new hazards are introduced, then you must address those situations as well